That's horrible. Hey, Mark.
Hey, good afternoon.
How are you?
Good, good.
How cold is it there?
It's warmed up. It's very nice here today. After a couple days of where the high was 15 below, I think it got up to like above freezing today for a little bit. So,
Yeah, we did too, but the wind chill was between 2 and 18. So
ooh, brutal. No,
it's it's been chilly.
it's been very pleasant today after a rough start to the year, but it's beautiful. We got lots of snow and the ground is all covered and
Yeah.
it's all beautiful. And I'll think it's beautiful for about the next 4 weeks. And then after that, it's like, when
Oh,
it's time for spring, So
I'm getting irritated already because usually we're not this cold on the island until like January.
yeah. Well, I'm a little bit concerned because I love skiing and I have a trip planned out to Breckenridge and they have no
Oh.
snow out west right now at all. So it's kind of like, what's going on here? They've got, so we're planning on being out there, I think the 10th or so of January. So I'm looking anxiously at the weather report coming up here. So
Well, I'll keep my fingers crossed for you.
yeah, yeah. The funny thing was I was in November, we have a boat on the East Coast. And so I
Yes.
spent the month of November, well, mid-October to almost the end of November sailing down the East Coast, and I took the boat out of the water down in the Florida Keys, and they were all looking at me like, "No, Mister, you don't understand." It's like people from Minnesota come down here in November and put the boat in the water to go sailing,
We
and
don't go the other way.
yeah, why are you taking the boat out and going back to Minnesota? It's like so.
Hi, Terry.
Hey, Terry,
Oh,
Hello, hello.
what happened to you?
What, here? Oh,
Yeah.
a biopsy. So
Oh,
hopefully not bad, but we shall see.
oh, I hope not. Yes. They're not very pleasant.
It
Mm.
wasn't bad. It's just a matter of waiting. So
Mm.
we shall see.
Well, I'll keep my fingers crossed for you too, but
yeah. So are you looking at snow up in the mountains there, Terry?
Actually, believe it or not, here it's just nothing. Rain, snow. It's a La Nina year, so
Yeah,
it all goes north.
yeah,
good.
So Island, Montana, Dakotas,
yeah,
whatever, they get it.
yeah,
And no, I haven't gone skiing this year.
yeah. I'm looking forward to getting out. I was just telling Nina that I'm hoping that, unfortunately, I'd been planning on going to Colorado and they're kind of suffering the
I
same
think they're
lack of
south.
snow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
You may
counting on
have to go
something.
to Big Sky, Montana or something like
Yeah.
Well,
Love Big Sky. That's a great place.
we like to try and get out and cross country ski, or we started snowshoeing
Oh,
last year,
wow.
but it's too cold. I'm not,
You
with the
have
wind
a,
chill,
yeah,
you can get frostbite in 30 minutes, I think. That's like,
yeah.
I
Good.
saw it warmed up today. It's in the 30s.
Yes, but the wind chill is still below freezing. It's whipping out there. And I'm sure it's worse in Minnesota. I'm not, but
Minnesotans always talk tough, though.
well, I'm a soft British person, so even though I've had winters in Chicago and stuff like that, I'm not a huge fan. So,
It's good to
Mary,
admit
are you
it.
there?
Hi. Yes, I
Hey,
hi.
hello,
If anyone's
hello,
wondering, it's beautiful in Georgia. Sorry.
man. Okay.
I'm sitting on the back porch. I got my sleeves rolled up.
Oh, that looks great.
Don't want to hear about that.
Sorry.
Okay. One, two, three, me, four. So I don't know. I have heard nothing from Kayla.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from her either.
So I don't know. Karen, her mom died over Thanksgiving.
Oh,
Hmm.
So she said she'd try and join, but we should just go ahead.
right. I think
Um,
so.
and then I was wondering if Julian might join because, he was interested in fundraising and learning a bit more, stuff like that. But if he's not, he's not. I don't know. I haven't
My
seen
job
him.
is to tell Julian all the things that we talk about for both.
Okay.
So
All
I'll
right.
let Julian know what we talk about
All
today.
right. Okay. Well, why don't we get moving? So I set this up not necessarily saying I would be chair, but I would love to be co-chair with someone if that's possible. Maybe Karen, once she kind of comes back online, because I'm still kind of in waiting in case things get worse with my mom. Um, because I could need to just take off for a funeral or whatever. So I don't, and I can keep on going. It's just that, as we know, I mean, with you, Terry, it's about 8 hours difference to London, and for the rest of us, well, it would be six. So it's just a bit awkward for me if I do have to go to London. But regardless, I'm happy to kind of keep on as kind of chair if people are happy with it. But I would prefer it to be a co-chair situation. But we can whatever. Um, does
And
that sound okay?
it does to me,
Yeah.
and even though obviously Karen's absent,
Yeah,
just to get some direction, because I think we've had a committee for, I don't know, 3 months. We're kind of spitballing. Um, I'm all for nominating Nina and Karen, to be committee co-chairs, depending upon obviously Karen saying yay.
yeah.
But I think where we are in the year, we need to at least get that order of business done. And related to that would be, and I know this will be one of the topics, is we need to talk about accelerating fundraising. And I think Nina, you and Karen have a hell of a lot more experience than I do. And we need to focus on grants and other things that we need to get going on. So I think adding structure as the first thing would be great. So I'll put that out there.
I
Nina,
would.
grateful to you saying, "Hey, I'll be willing to be a co-chair," and hopefully Karen, once obviously her life squares away, which she's going through a hard time now. It sounds like she'll be willing to say, "Yeah, I'll be co-chair."
And what I might do after we finish today is actually maybe tomorrow send her an email and see how she is and see what she thinks about the idea, because I know that she has her particular area of expertise, I think, is foundations and grants. And
Yeah.
although I have done a number of grant applications. My particular professional experience is more in the direct marketing and major donor areas. Um,
I, I think she's expressed interest in that too,
yeah.
and I mean, if we're talking about the entire coming year, she might not be, feeling up to it in the near future, in the immediate future, but certainly I think if we're looking at the year, given the interest that she's expressed, I would second Terry's sentiments here, and I think if you would call her, that would be great.
Okay. I mean, and I'm not sure how much Kayla wants to be involved because I really haven't had any particular interactions with her. So, I don't know, Mary, if if you've got a better idea about how
Regarding
much she wants to be
because I'm
involved.
in for that. Oh, about Kayla. So I haven't really gotten a lot of communication from Kayla. I know that she's also supposed to be on the programming committee, and I think it's
Okay.
only her and Julian. Um, so I don't know if they're even communicating on that side of things. I know that Julian has just kind of been starting to look at stuff, and as far as I can tell, Kayla hasn't been consulting with him yet. So I'm not really sure just how much Kayla is currently participating. So I don't really have an answer for that.
Well, I might contact her just one to one and see what she's thinking about.
Yeah.
Does that also sound okay with
That
everyone?
sounds
'Cause I,
perfect.
Yeah.
I don't want to run with something if people are going, wait, or anything. Okay.
No,
I'll
I think it'd be helpful because I really haven't seen a reply in months. So,
Yeah.
okay.
I think that Kayla's very new to this kind of board situation. Uh,
Okay.
and I think that she's just still trying to get a grasp of it. And I don't think that she knew how many things were going to be asked at the time. So I think she's still adjusting a little bit.
Well,
I think it'd be cool to reach out to her.
I'm also happy just to say, does she want to have a chat
Yeah.
and see what her thoughts are?
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
okay. All right.
and
Um,
I would definitely preface it by saying, hey, we view her as being important, being a school
Yeah.
mhm.
member, but if other things are going on, just let us know, you
Yep.
know, and go from there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think that's kind of number one. I was just going to run through the things that I put down that I thought would be really useful to start talking about. But if anyone else has got anything that they want to pitch in, then please do. So the next thing I had on my kind of agenda was marketing and fundraising priorities for 2026 and beyond. Not a big subject. Um,
No.
Great.
um,
Okay, we're done. Let's move to the next one then. We got
Yeah.
that covered, right?
so, so what, so just to prefix this with there's, nearly every board meeting that I've been to, someone says, we've got to do more fundraising. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. But I've been a little and then Mary, you did that huge document in which covered all the things that were needed for the landscaping and the sign and all that sort of thing. And I then thought, well, has this been is this our priority, or are we supposed to be trying to fundraise for core funding? So because if we've got a deficit every year, then
Both.
we've got to decide
Yeah. For
what our fundraising priorities are and therefore what our strategies are.
Yeah.
I would look at breaking it down, you know, first starting on the revenue side, fundraising. Yes, we just published a fundraising letter a few weeks ago. What I think would be helpful for us is to look at, hopeful to get a good response from that for the tail end of the year, but started an initiative for 2026 for fundraising. And Mary, I think what you've put together perhaps look at, the specific requests. And I don't know, Mary, you'll have to enlighten us in terms of somebody has said, hey, we need a digital sign. I'll help fund X amount of it. Okay, that's cool. Is that a high priority in our fundraising, or is the outdoor stage, is the indoor lighting, the outdoor light, whatever?
Yeah.
I
I'd like
So
think we
to
need to look at.
add, I think I have a couple thoughts on that, Terry, adjacent to that. For me, if we're talking about fundraising, I think it comes down to three things. One is, as you said, Nina, there's just the general deficit. How do we raise money, period? Two, I think your point, Terry, I would not want to see us get caught up jumping into raising money for projects without the using that to precipitate a larger discussion with the board, which is what are our strategic priorities? We don't want to get caught up in the who shouted loudest first, and suddenly we're off chasing fundraising for this, and we haven't considered that. So I think part of that process of determining what we raise money for is what are our priorities based on our longer vision, mission, whatever we want to talk about. And the third thing that I'd like to have us consider at some point, we tend to get caught up into the fundraising activities. And I know, Mary, you and I talked about one time, what is the overall messaging? Because we tend to get caught up in the, oh, we need to send out a letter or we need to find a grant. And part of the problem is we're missing out on the fact that fundraising is something that is a continuous part of everything we do. And so, Mary, like you and I talked about, what is the message that Julian needs to say every time he's up on stage before a show? What's the message we have to carry in every program? How do we get the radio station to reinforce that? So by the time we make the ask, we're not trying to convince people. They already know who we are and why we matter. The question is just how much do you want to give us? And we haven't done a good job of that. We suddenly send out letters or we ask people, but we haven't really baked into that messaging along the way. So I'd like to see that as a point of our discussion at some point.
And I would add to it, again, on the revenue side, I look at, our general donors, which we're very grateful for, but what are we missing?
Yeah,
Grants. Um, I know the rec and obviously the new gym with the Bradley Jordan Foundation. They're going to folk on the island, off the island to get revenue to build things or to replace things. And I think it would be very helpful rather than just, I don't want to say this critically, but hey, it's the end of the year. We need to send out a letter. Um, let's figure out as a fundraising committee what we can do as, subcommittees on grants. I have no clue. I just know there's money out there and hopefully we can get it. And at the same time, with donors, I look at as a donor, if somebody's asking, generically, okay, I may give, but hey, we have a specific initiative. Here's what we're trying to accomplish, and you as a donor can help us get this goal. I think that has more messaging value, and hence, what I said of, hey, let's look at it from a revenue side, but also compare it to what are we looking to accomplish? Just what you said, Mark,
yeah,
and what are our priorities? And yes, it's up to us, I think, as a committee, not to necessarily make the final decision, but to put out a recommendation to the board to say, okay, for 2026, here's what we're looking to accomplish, and here's what we need to do to accomplish it. with fundraising. And Mary, what you put together was awesome, but just realize, like the outdoor stage exceeds our entire annual income. When you look at everything that's included, whereas the sign may be 1/4 of our annual income. And there may be, to Mark's point, hey, a greater need for an outdoor stage than there is an outdoor sign where we have a funder willing to donate something. So it's up to us to weigh, hey, what do we have to accomplish and what's the bang for the buck that we can hopefully get for it.
So
Yeah.
here's the thing, and I know Mary, you've got things to say. I know because you can tell us how much has actually come in from the appeal, the solicitation. The thing is that donors might decide that there's something that we need that they will fund. Now, this particular donor, that from what I've gathered, I don't know who it is, but they have said, if you want an outdoor sign, I will fund it, or I will at least contribute a big chunk of it. Now, that donor is not going to give to something else. If we turn around and said, hey, the sign's great and we really do need it somewhere down the line, but if you could give us that money to help with our deficit this year, I can almost certainly say that person is going to say no.
Yeah.
Which is fine. And so
Which
if
is,
the
yeah,
sign is like $42,000 and they're saying, hey, I'll give you $5,000 for that sign, that's one thing. If they're saying they'll pay for the whole thing, that's another.
I'm not saying we should turn them down. I'm just saying it's kind of horses for courses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we need a sign and there's a donor that says that they will do the sign, then I'd say take the money, get the sign.
I think that's one of the things that, and I don't want to miss the urgency or the immediacy of some of these decisions, but I think the question that why we need to do a better job of, setting these priorities is so that we don't let the tail wag the dog,
Yeah.
and where we can get out
Completely
ahead of
agree.
these things, because otherwise it's so easy to get caught up in, the better the job we can do of letting the community know who we are and what we prioritize, the less chance there is of someone trying to be helpful and making assumptions on our part and saying, what you really need is this. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, but if so, I'm not saying we let the tail wag the dog. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that if we're going to piss someone, if we need a sign, if a
yeah,
sign is on our long,
right. Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah,
that we
if
don't
that,
turn around and say, sorry, we need other things. We don't
right,
need the sign at this point. I think that would be a bad move.
yeah,
Mary, pitch in.
sorry.
So I have a couple of things because those are all very good points. So yes, the thought started, the outdoor fundraiser started with the idea of the sign. The reason that it expanded out to include things like, maybe we also do the stage. We do one big fundraiser instead of doing a bunch of little fundraisers. Because reality is we need upgrades to the outdoor stage. Our outdoor shows actually brought in more revenue than most of our indoor shows for the entire season. So if we improve that outdoor space, I feel like that would just grow that much more, especially since our biggest months of the year that we actually do have people is in July and August, which is the reason we have as many outdoor shows as we do during that time, because it's beautiful. People want to be outside, and we do free will donation shows, which also means that we have artists that we are having to pay less simply because they come for the fun of the outdoor show. The needs of the staff is what really prioritized a lot of the ideas for this program. The outdoor sign, Julian is such a champ for all the millions of things that he does. The signage around the island, just like posters, which is something that we will talk about separately, just like posters, is an almost unnecessary strain to a certain degree, simply because when we have shows where we have twice a week shows, it's really hard for Julian to break away from his other schedule for his other jobs and things to go and switch out all the signs, to go and do this and that. That and the fact that it winds up being pretty short notice, because I wrote out his schedule for the year on what all the signs were supposed to be, what days they needed to be changed. And when I did that, it made it very, very apparent that there were very small windows of time where we were actually getting the advertising needs that we need for our shows. And yes, you have observer articles, but not everybody reads that. Yes, you have Facebook art or Facebook posts, but not everybody checks that. But they do drive around the island. Posters and our marquees and stuff like that kind of go hand in hand on the importance of those people that didn't necessarily come up to the island with a plan, because that is a lot of our visitors. They don't necessarily make a plan. They just wanted to go to the island and they're kind of winging it on their vacation. They then look to those things to figure out what they're going to do. Needing a sign in front of the TPAC that advertises more than one show at a time would be a game changer for us, honestly, to a certain degree. Those posters, the big poster boards all over the island, they get so bogged down. If I wasn't looking for our poster, I probably wouldn't notice it. Even when they were doing one poster per show, they
I
get
experience the same thing. You know, if I'm doing something at the museums, I put
absolutely.
it up, but there's
It's
so much
so
there.
effective. Yeah. There's
I
just
get
lost
that.
in the clutter, which would be nice to then have our own sign with our own information that it tells you what shows are that week. You could even advertise for the shows the next week. That's kind of the convenience of that. And that's what kind of inspired it to begin with. And then there's the idea of the stage. One of my first meetings with Julian was he had an idea for a stage. We do need a better stage, especially if we're going to continue to do stuff like Bash. Bash was absolutely amazing. But if you look at the photos of Bash, our little thrown together stage doesn't exactly give the best image of the TPAC. It's very cute. It's perfect for what it is, but at the same time, we're not exactly putting out the best impression of ourselves, and that's not what I want for the TPAC. That's definitely not what the TPAC wants for itself. It does need some improvements. For example, Kevin covers his equipment with a baby shade because we don't have stuff for him to protect the equipment that we need to be able to do that.
Okay, can I stop you, Mary, just for a second? Because I think this is all great. The stage, and I don't remember how much was projected
Mhm.
for I mean, how much would you need to fundraise
So
for the stage?
that's the issue. That's the reason why I was like, I really need input on this, simply because we could take the stage that's there and just build a covering over it. That by itself already gets us in a better spot than we're already at. It could be we just add a roof. It
Yeah.
could be
This
that
is
we add,
something,
yeah,
this
just
is something
something.
that you could get
Yes.
from the Community Investment Fund because it's tangible, it serves residents of the island, it also serves visitors.
Yeah, it looks good
Yeah.
for the TPAC. It looks better for our artists as well because they are baking in the sun when they're playing shows.
You don't have
Yeah.
to
But,
say anymore.
I
that's
Like,
think,
we
the thing.
get the need. We get the
Yeah.
need.
But like Bash, for example, we had people coming on and off the stage, but we don't have the exact equipment that we need for the outdoor stage, simply because we like just drag a bunch of stuff from inside. And Julian and Kevin and Tom do a fabulous job getting all those things set up. But having actual equipment for them to do our outdoor shows would be a massive thing. Like Donna's show got moved, and then oh, so suddenly we needed the equipment for the indoor show for Donna, but we also needed it for outside at the same time, like because we had 2 days of separation, but she needed it for rehearsals. We had to move a show that was supposed to be outside inside because we couldn't move the equipment. And then we had a bunch of people that literally walked up to see the show, saw that it had been moved inside, and left because they wanted to be at an outdoor show and they didn't want to go inside.
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
So I'm sold. I understand the
Yeah.
need. I get it completely, but we need to know how much
Yeah.
this is all going to, what it is,
And
what is needed, how much equipment is needed, how much it's going to cost.
Yeah,
That's what we
I
need.
think the
We need
other,
to know what we're asking for.
absolutely.
yeah,
Very
the
fair.
other, the other thing I would suggest is that this is something that this committee can do to precipitate the larger discussion with the board. And it's kind of like, what is the business plan around this? Because one of the problems that happens in art centers all the time, and it happened in mine, is that the programming and operations crew can make the argument that you're making for any improvement in the theater. This is going to improve things. The hard question is, okay, when do we need it? How soon do we need it? What are the alternatives in the meantime? And what is the business case for it? Because one part of it is, yes, this makes it easier for the artist, this makes a better experience. But there were many times when we knew that we were sub-optimizing the experience because it just didn't rank on the business decision side. And so I think one of the things we want to be careful of is, having made the case like you're making, is then you step back and go, okay, to get from point A to point B over there, what are the intermediate steps? What are the alternative steps? Because the thing that can tear apart an organization right away too, and I think this is what we have to be careful of, is we've painted this picture of why an outdoor stage is better. And there's no doubt that it is better. But is that the best use of our fundraising ability? Because we also can make the case that we need heat inside during the winter time, and we need music stands, and we need music chairs. And so we can't treat these sequentially, but we have to look at, again, the overall business proposition that starts with what we've said, but then we back off.
Yeah, so that's
And
actually, sorry.
I was just going to say, and to add to that is, you know, Peter challenged us, he published a pro forma 2026 budget and just realized nothing is in it, for anything, for improvements that we're talking about, be it lighting, sound, outdoor stage, signage, etc. So it also behooves us to do what Mark said. Here are the priorities based on XYZ, and, you know, perhaps pre-funding for 2026, we look at this. For 2027, we look at that. Just again, realize we don't have an unlimited budget to do everything. Yeah, we need more indoor outdoor lighting. We need an outdoor stage. An outdoor digital sign is great. I'm not arguing with any of that. It just, how are we going to pay for it? And we have to look at that in terms of priorities. And yes, the priorities may be an outdoor digital sign. Someone says, I'll pay 90% of it. Okay, that makes it more of a no-brainer than another big project.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Mary.
So I really, Mary always has a plan and five backups. That's a joke that my friends always say about me. I actually already have about 3 years of an idea of different fundraisers that all kind of back to back to back each other. I chose specifically to start outside, move inside kind of thing, to specifically give fundraising committee, because I didn't know if I was going to be on said committee or not, to give just the idea of like, hey, so start here, have a very specific fundraiser for each individual year.
Just a second, Mary. Can you clarify what you mean by fundraiser?
So when I say fundraiser, I mean, like, for example, our wonderful letter that we sent out. One of the things that I've learned working with different committees on the island is when you are very specific about what the funds are being used for, you actually wind up with way more donors. Simply because they know exactly what their money's going towards. Now, when you just do
a menu of opportunities,
yeah.
things that we are going to spend our money on that they can contribute to.
Yes.
This is what you're talking about. Okay. So because
Or,
if you say fundraiser, to me, it sounds like we're going to have an event and
fair.
the purpose of the event is to fundraise for this particular thing.
No, I'm
I'm
talking
getting
about,
confused with your terms.
Yeah.
no,
So,
yeah, fair. I'm talking about long-term fundraisers. I'm not talking like a single specific event. I'm the reason that I wrote out my, what is the term I should use other than fundraiser?
well, you're talking about fundraising goals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're talking about the things that you're
Yeah.
trying to
Or
achieve
specific
with the
project to
fundraising.
fundraise for.
So yeah, so the reason that I broke down my packet the way that I did to break it into individual sections was one, to break up the goals so that we, if we wanted to, we can choose one specific goal at a time. We could try and explain the whole thing in one big go and see where we get from there. It was one of the things that I kind of wanted to talk to you guys more about how to go about explaining to people if we did choose the plan packet that I had written out. If we did want to just break it into one section at a time, and this is what we're fundraising for. All right, moving on to the next one. This is what we're fundraising for, and kind of break it down that way. In my mind, it was easier to do the full packet presentation kind of thing of we're raising funds specifically for the gardens, the sign, and for the stage. Just leave it at those three things. And then if people ask more questions, well, this is specifically how we're doing this breakdown. This is specifically how we're doing this breakdown. For larger donors, having that breakdown I felt would be very helpful for like literally be able to hand them numbers of like, this is our plan and idea. This is what we're thinking. This is our goal for this specific amount. The other reason was, like you said before, we do have an interested donor that is very specifically talking about just the sign. They're not talking about contributing to the larger scale pot. They're wanting that specific part of the pot. So if that means that we have, let's say, a $50,000 sign, originally what he said was that he'd be willing to just pay for it. I think that he was just being hyperbolic because he was excited about the idea of us getting a sign, because I later learned he had very strong opinions about him having a digital sign at the TPAC. I did not know that at the time. But I think that what I responded with was, how about this? If I figured out the funds we would need for it, and we did a fundraiser of some kind to raise funds for this specific goal, would you cover what the remainder is? As in, like, would you cover whatever that
Guarantee what the deficit was.
correct? And that is what he agreed to at the time. And I have since confirmed with him that he still agrees to that concept.
Okay.
Which then apparently he had a separate conversation with Mike, which Mike seems very confused about. I haven't gotten to talk to him about that yet. I'm kind of confused.
So I'm going to circle. So I think this is all great. However, I'm going to circle back to one of the things I said in our board meeting, which was this is, if you've got a sign, but we've had to close the theatre for most of the year because we don't actually have the funds to run it, then it's kind of academic.
Yeah.
So that's the kernel of my concern, is that if we actually need to bring in money so we don't necessarily have a deficit every year,
Yeah.
which from what Peter's been saying, and I've only, with Terry and I have only been on the board for like a year and a half. So I don't have the depth of experience with TPAC yet to really know how things shake out.
Mm-hmm.
But it does, it kind of, it feels like in a way we're running, but we're running past what our core need is, which is funds to run the theatre.
Correct. So, as I'm sure you know, running museums on the island, we tap the island community pretty hard for donors. There are a lot of non-for-profits. Actually, most groups on the island are in one way or another a non-for-profit. I think our real issue, me personally, just observing what it's like in those committees / what I remember from TPAC previously and now even, we're still hitting the same cycle. Like noticing, so the chart that I had for reference for the fundraising mailing letter, it has 2022, and it's not looking great from the 2022 lists with a grand total of the entire mailing only being 1,800. That same mailing list for this one, as of last week, because I haven't updated it since I got to Georgia, is 6,464. Now that seems like an increase, but that's still pretty low compared to what I remember our end of year donor lists bringing in previously back in like 2019. Um,
So,
now, yes.
so you're saying we've got six. Sorry, I'm a bit confused. You're talking about how much has come in from the mailing.
Yes, from this specific
Okay.
mailing, that is how much has come in from this specific mailing.
So
Um,
$6,000.
Correct. Well, closer to seven, but still not where we want to be. Um,
Well, what do we have a goal? Because
well, we don't necessarily have a goal. Like
okay.
that. There's not like a line of like, oh, well, we thought it was going to be 100. Like it's not that.
No, no,
That's
yeah, yeah.
also one of the issues. Like, Mike had made the comment previously about like, well, we haven't had a fundraiser of any kind since the matching donor year, where they had the like, this is our goal, and then we have a matching donor list. If
Well,
we,
that was just last year.
well,
I mean,
correct.
that was 2024.
But we
So,
didn't do anything this year. And Peter and Mike had both made comments about like our donor numbers are down. Because I think there wasn't a specific goal for people to donate towards, is a little bit part of that.
so when
Um,
you say donor numbers, do you mean the numbers of donors that we have or the amount that they've given?
I think it's both. I don't have all the stuff from the last 4 years. It would be really nice if I did.
Yeah. Is there any way of actually getting that data?
I I have no clue. I will talk to Kate and see if I can
Okay.
get any more files from her. I have everything that Kate gave me starting in March of this past year. And I don't have any of those things. Like Tom Pratt sent me our mailing list. It didn't even come from Kate. So I genuinely have no clue what happened for the past 5 years. I'm going to talk to Peter just to give myself more reference because I need to have a little bit more of a gauge understanding of exactly that information.
Would imagine it has to be in the in the budget because
Oh,
there
it
has to
does.
not the budget he starts with, but that at the end of the year there should be a line. This is what we projected, and this is what came in.
So I'm pretty sure that there is, simply because me and Pat very adamantly keep track of the donor list throughout the entire year. I do not have a grand total right now because I don't grand total my little notes that I write to myself to send to Pat. I can tell you, I do not have these totaled up.
Pat should have a grand total of donations, shouldn't she?
4, 5.
She may not have how many donors, but she should know exactly what's come in.
I can give it as far as what Peter put together on the spreadsheet during the last board meeting.
So
Um,
I can,
Door,
okay, sorry, go.
and this is his spreadsheet from fiscal year 2024 through 2025, ending October 31. Um, Donor receipts. Well, sponsors was 8,600. Operating fund donations, 20,000. Door receipts, 15,500. Grant income was 0. Radio station income, I don't know where that comes from. That was by far the highest, 40,000.
Yeah.
And endowment match to go with the 20,000 was another 20,000. So I'm going off of Peter's spreadsheet without
So
him
that's at the end of year.
verifying.
That's his fiscal year end, what came in for the fiscal year
Correct.
2025.
October 31, 2025.
Okay, well, I can also go back and look
Well,
at
I,
that.
I look at not just number of donors and the amount of donations, but I look at last year as with the matching fund, I wouldn't call that a goal per se. It's like, hey, you provide $1,000, we have someone who'll match it for 1,000. What I look at as really a goal is to tell people we need to improve the outdoor stage. We need to do this. We need to
Yeah,
do that. Just give them something tangible, not, hey, we want more money from you, and we have someone to match one for one what you're providing.
It was,
So,
I mean, that was a particular year, and that was the particular was to grow the endowment, because the important thing about endowment is that the income offsets what you need to raise or bring in from tickets and box office receipts. So it helps you towards your running costs. I mean, that's why,
no, and I don't disagree with that at
yeah,
all. What I'm saying as a donor, if someone's asking me for money, well, what do you need it for? We just need
it's
your money.
not it's not an appealing prospect necessarily to all donors. But the other thing that we have to look at is different types of donors will give to different
right.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are not mutually exclusive things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
That,
No.
you
Well,
know,
But if we want to try and look at foundations who will support us, then they are more, I mean, I've known foundations actually give to core funding. I've known it happen, but it's not typical. They want to give to a project that they can see, and it can be itemized out. This is how much we need because we're doing this, and this is where it's going to get us to. So,
yeah.
for example, Mary, the whole outdoor stage thing, I think is a good project for a foundation or a funder like that. However, if you do break it down, I mean, for example, if we do need more music stands, if we do need a particular type of equipment, there may be people who are really interested in supporting those sort of things. And that's what we take to those people. But if we don't know what we need, how do we take it to the people that might fund it?
Fair. So one of the things that I've already been working on with the employees themselves, I reached out to Tom, I reached out to Scott, I reached out to Kevin, and I reached out to Julian. What I got them to do, just to give me an idea of things, it's not necessarily where we were getting stuff from. I started to get them to make Amazon wish list kind of thing, specifically for what are things that you feel or you have had musicians ask us about, or you've had performers ask us about, of equipment that we need to provide either just better quality or just more comfort or whatever it is for our artists that come in. So we started breaking that down. I even talked to Matt Cokes because he had very specific music chairs that he thinks like the music festival would probably even help us fundraise specifically for, or might even do their own stuff, and like we store it at the TPAC kind of deal. Like we could work that out with them. There's a couple of different concepts of different things I wanted to work on. Part of the reason that I also did the breakdown of my fundraising packet that I did was specifically because there are grants that we could write for specifically for our garden needs. Kate did an absurd amount of work specifically trying to plant native plants. That by itself gets us very specific access to grants that are meant for propagating and
Absolutely.
that kind of
Yeah.
garden.
Yeah.
So like it does open that up. I talked to Julian, and I'm not sure if he's done anything with it yet. I talked to Julian about reaching out to some of the members of PAHA, which is the
Yes, I know what PAHA is.
I was like,
I'm part of HADC, which is the Heritage Alliance of Door County, which is the historical and preservation
okay,
organization network in Door County.
okay.
So it's a
But
similar.
I know that some of the other theaters have built outdoor stages, and I was going to talk to some of them and get some ideas about how they found the funding for those stages, if there's
Good
specific
idea.
grants or specific foundations or any of those kinds of things they reach out to do those things, because that's very common for a lot of theaters. So there has to be something out there, because it's not like all these other non-for-profit businesses are just willy-nilly fundraising for these kinds of things. I feel like if we get a little bit more questions asked at PAHA meetings, we might at least get a little bit more of an idea. Door County wise, because that's a whole other.
But is there anything stopping you from actually going to these organizations and just saying, look, we need to do this. Will you have a telephone conversation with me?
Oh no,
Or
that's
whatever.
totally, that's totally fair. I personally have not spoken to them in 5 years.
Okay.
They've probably had massive turnover since then. But at the same time, I know that Julian's been going to the meetings. And I don't necessarily want to leave it on Julian, but I felt like it would be weird for me to bypass Julian to ask those questions. So I didn't want to bulldoze Julian by going around him and talking to those people.
Oh, absolutely not. I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting
Oh
that.
no, I know you weren't. But I am working with Julian to kind of get that idea going, just to see if they had ideas for us, or at least some kind of semblance of like, how did you figure out how to build this thing that we also need? Because a lot of them also have digital signs. Like there might be programs that they reached out to help them get their signs. So that is something that I've talked to him about trying to figure out doing, but clearly I didn't want to really go forward with that concept until fundraising committee decided if we're even close to
Okay.
wanting to go forward with that.
So we are almost at well, we're 10 minutes to 5. So I kind of want to see what we can do as far as next steps are concerned, and maybe to take something to the board meeting in January for kind of how we're going to move forward with this. Um,
I I would be reluctant. I just want to caution on the how we're going to move forward with this. What
no,
is
no,
the
with
this?
fundraising
Oh, okay,
is what
okay.
I'm
I
talking
didn't want
about,
to
not
presume that we're.
this particular project. I'm just I want us to have just at least a base, not necessarily by January, but a basic strategy for how we're going to move forward for the things that TPAC needs, whether that is core funding, whether that is an outdoor stage, whether that is whatever it is. But if we don't
Could
know
I,
what the landscape looks
yeah,
like, how
could I
how do
suggest
we start?
that we start them off? I mean, and I don't mean this to sound like we're kicking the can down the road, but with the board versus the committee, where we start them off with this is how we're planning to plan, almost that kind of having a condensed version of this discussion and getting them to think about this in the right frame of mind. So if we explain to them that, look, we need to raise money for operations. So how we position ourselves throughout the year, what does the fundraising calendar look like? So it doesn't come down to just a letter at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, guys, that's one thing we have to do. The second thing we have to do, because we've got these ideas for projects, is we need the board to define what is the highest and best use. So like Mary, when you were talking about the Amazon list, I think one of the things to go back to the team would be, okay, guys, we can't do all of this clearly. So what do you think are the priorities on this list? You have to rank this. Don't throw it on us. So we kind of we get the board thinking about how we approach fundraising, because right now, my sense is that it comes down to, well, let's just find people to ask for money. And that's the problem. We don't have a fundraising strategy. We don't, and again, these are not mutually exclusive. We can throughout the year talk about, we need money. Here's what we do for the community. Here's why we need money. And by the way, here specifically, if you're interested, are some of the specific projects that we're trying to fund. We want to do a sign, we want to do education, whatever. And we give people a bit of a menu to stimulate discussions. And I think if we go to the board and get them thinking about it in that structured way, we can continue to have these discussions and go back to them and say, okay, what is the value of a sign? How does that translate to real dollars at the end of the year? How is that going to help, and how is that going to make us more money ultimately? So I would approach the board at that higher level. Just here's what the fundraising calendar looks like. Here are the things we need to do. And by the way, we're going to come back to you with some more specific things and more specific discussion on some of the capital needs. But I don't think I I just get scared of the idea that let's come up with a shopping list of all the cool things that we need and you guys go out and raise money for it. That's the discussion I want to avoid.
And I completely agree. We need a roadmap. We need
Yeah,
to what is needed, and we need to figure out how we're going to get there. But it's just a
and
little
I think part of
bit.
it is just presenting them with the roadmap and getting approval. So the roadmap might be simply, here's how much money we need to raise. This is our fundraising goal. This is how many more dollars we need to raise for operation. And what is our goal about increasing the number of donors? We're at this many donors now. Our goal needs to be, we need to increase it by this much. Second part of the roadmap is we clearly need to raise money for capital projects, but in order to do that, we need to understand what the return on investment is and what the priority for those projects are. So we are going to come back to the board with a discussion about which one of these we prioritize. And it's priorities because we need it, because it's return on investment, and because it's fundable. So we start giving them the criteria. Third thing on the roadmap is fundraising is a year-round process. It's not an end of the year thing. So here's how we lay out the messaging in all of our marketing about who we are and why we matter to the community. Because quite honestly, I think that's one of the reasons the rec center's done a good job is they've gone beyond we're all about swimming pools and weight rooms to we are a community institution. And whether you like to go swimming or not, that pool matters to you.
It
We
does.
yeah, and we
It
need to
matters to me.
I know it matters to me when I'm up there too. And we need, I think, to continue. How do we get that message out continuously, not just in the end of the year mailing where we say, oh, by the way, here's some people that say we're doing good stuff. Like, what's the strategy? So, I mean, that could be the roadmap. And then the final piece of the roadmap is what's the year-end appeal or multiple appeals look like? What is the roadmap? Do we have some specific fundraising events? And my own sense is that for the board right now, if we have 4 items on the roadmap, that's about all we can really get our heads around right now.
And not that, Mark, I disagree, but I would look at our role is to make, some recommendations and to help the board prioritize. So
Yeah,
I
I,
I I I don't want to just go around in a circle with, the board. What I would look at in this regard would be, okay, the committee is going to have a focused grant writing, initiative. We can take what Mary has produced, which is
yeah,
awesome, and yeah, it'll be a shotgun. We'll throw it out for outdoor stage, gardening, you name it. I know nothing about grants, but the point being is we need to widen the focus of those who are willing and able to donate. And the other part I still don't know from this discussion is, with the outdoor signage, yes, I understand the need, the value, etc. But do we have someone willing to fund the whole thing? And if that's the case, it becomes a no-brainer. Just tell the person, hey, you know, we're in.
Yeah.
I don't
I,
know.
I think to
Um,
your point, Terry, I'm glad you said what you just said because I think that's sort of like the follow on to what I just said in a way that if we give the board, here are the four key elements or whatever of the roadmap. I think the next part is, and if it's okay with you, assuming this, you all agree with this, we're going to come back with specific guidance on these issues then. And so, yeah, we're not just throwing it to the board and saying figure it out, but we're really giving them some
I
specific
think that's
action
our job
steps.
is
Yeah,
to really help guide the discussion, for lack of
yep,
a better term, and mold the end result to the best of our ability. But
yeah,
also looking at the dollars and cents, Peter's also challenged us. Okay, I have nothing in the budget. You tell me what should be in the budget because I don't know.
yeah,
And hence we can't go back to the board of you tell us what to tell Peter to put in the budget
yeah.
because we have nothing.
It's
And
all,
so anyway, I think we need to, between now and the next board meeting, come up with a list of recommendations as well as a list of here's how we're helping as a committee, with fundraising, be it grants, be it a next fundraising letter initiative, however we wish to proceed, but just map it out and just say, do you approve? If not,
yeah.
let us know.
I,
But
I think that's a
not just
good idea.
throw everything else back at the board and say, tell us what you want us to do, because we're just going to go bzzz
Yeah.
around in circles.
I like that
And
approach where we map it out and say, are you guys good with this? Because we're ready to move on it. We don't want to spin our wheels, but like you said, we don't just throw it out and say, tell us what to do. We're saying, this is what we think we're going to do now. So everybody good because we're ready to charge ahead.
but I think it's important because Mary's also on the committee and she's probably going to be the person on the staff that's leading on a lot of these things and actually doing the actual work that, you know, you also need to be happy with, what it is that we're suggesting.
I would like to throw out the not really like a deadline, but a suggested deadline maybe of us having, it doesn't even have to be this project. We decide that we're gonna like put this on the shelf and do it a different year, fine. If we decide that there are other priorities that need to be this upcoming year's fundraising goal for the year, for like a specific project, I would like for that deadline to be in April so that I have the opportunity to already start advertising for it well in advance before people start getting on the island in May. So it's already being discussed publicly before the arrival in May. And then we can continue talking about it through May to get it out there into the world. Just simply because I've noticed that when there are announcement for fundraising goals later in the summer,
Um,
they get bypassed. I learned that with
yeah,
my next truck program. Very hard.
yeah,
So there's a difference
that's a
between
good point.
us actually doing a grant application, for example,
Yeah,
for an outdoor stage and going to the community as a whole and saying we need money for an outdoor stage. So these are two very, very different things. So
we can
I'm
find
not
the money
saying
through grants. I would rather find the money through grants personally, simply because I feel like we tap our donors pretty often.
we need one of the things that we need to think about is diversifying who we're asking.
Absolutely.
That is really key because the radio is doing a lot of different things like sponsorships and so on, and that is bringing results.
Yeah.
So,
And if you look at Peter's spreadsheet, the radio brought in more than a quarter of
yeah,
the income. How? I don't know. It's just a spreadsheet line item, radio station income.
It's the bash,
Like,
actually. The bash by itself actually brought in over $20,000 for just that event. That by
let's
itself.
let's have a double bash.
Yeah,
I will have multiple bashes every year. It'll be great.
Yeah,
But
don't be careful what you wish
John,
for because
I
they
do
are a
not want,
huge amount of effort.
since I have to be the one to plan that, please don't do that to me. One maybe. um,
Okay, so there's been an awful lot of food for thought, I think, from our discussion today, which is great. Mary, the meeting was being recorded. Is that going to go into an AI document that maybe you can share with me?
yeah, the only reason I recorded is simply because it actually will do a write out of our
Yes,
entire.
that's what I mean, an
Oh,
AI
good.
document that we can actually see.
I
Because I've taken a few notes, but I'm not going to remember everything that we talked about. So
That's fair. I also, by the way, I have this at 2 hours. So if there is any other discussion we need to have, we can do that. If we want to cut, we can too.
I think they've got the executive meeting.
Yeah,
Oh,
gotta run.
and yeah, we need.
So they will be moving on to that. So that this is why I needed to kind of wrap up. But Mary, if you can share that document with me, which is the AI document of the meeting, that would be great. And
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
will circle back with everyone um, by early January in terms of how we might kind of then move this forward with the board on this roadmap.
Yeah. Um, my last note of the conversation is, hey, we're almost to January. I need bios to start coming in because
Oh, okay.
y'all are my observer articles for the next 3 months. All of you.
Okay,
Remind
bio,
the executive committee as well, please.
bio.
Got
Okay.
it.
All
Thanks.
right, guys. Thank you very
You
much.
guys.
See you soon. Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
Thank you,
Likewise,
everyone.
Bye.
Likewise.
Bye.
stay warm.